Hi, I'm Kristin Ahrens, and I'm the Deputy Secretary for the Office of Developmental Programs. Today, I'm going to share with you a high-level overview of services for students with intellectual disabilities and autism that are provided through our office. The developmental programs, what we call ODP, is the entity within the Department of Human Services, or DHS, that is responsible for the oversight of services for people with intellectual disabilities and autism in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. We have a vision that's 2 words, pretty simple: everyday lives, and it is what it sounds like. It means that we value what's important to people with disabilities and their families who are striving to live an everyday life. People with disabilities have a right to an everyday life, a life no different than other citizens, meaning we support people to live, play, work, worship in communities across this Commonwealth. In order to support people to live those everyday lives, the Office of Developmental Programs has a number of different services that we offer through what are called home and community-based waivers. We call that waivers often. We shorten intellectual disabilities and autism to IDA. So when I'm talking about IDA waivers, I'm talking about all the kinds of services that are available to people through our Medicaid-funded home and community-based waiver services. So we've got, in the Office of Developmental Program, we have many different types of services that are available, and they're really aimed at supporting people to live those everyday lives. So everything from young adults transitioning out of high school who are interested in continuing and taking some courses, some additional post-secondary courses at a college or a university. We have educational support, meaning we can assist with covering tuition and for support that they may need on campus to be successful being integrated into that campus setting. We have services that range from 24/7 residential services in licensed homes to assistance for people who want to manage and direct their own service, hire their own workers to do services like in-home and community support. We have a whole list of residential services. So we have people that live in their own apartments or their own homes that receive support 24/7 from an agency. Those are unlicensed settings, and that's called supported living. We have life sharing arrangements for people who need 24/7 support, where the individual with the disability is living with a host person or host family in a life sharing. So they're literally just living in a person's home. Some of that support is provided by that person, but an agency is overseeing that support. All kinds of different supports for employment. So for transitioning youth, interested in competitive integrated employment, help with finding a job, help with keeping a job in terms of job coaching. So whole list of different services. On the clinical side, we've got nursing support that is available. We have behavioral support that is available through these waivers. That our system works. So in terms of who is eligible for ODP services, our county, the Office of Developmental Programs works in close partnership with our county administrative entities. So they do a number of different tasks on behalf of ODP and the Commonwealth to manage this Medicaid program and these Medicaid funded services. So the county office is the one, anybody who isn't registered for services with ODP, your first step is going to go to your county office. You can, find the directory, look for the county intellectual disability, autism services. Sometimes they're called mental health intellectual disability services. You want to go there and ask for an intake. And then the criteria to be eligible for an IDA services, IDA waivers, You're going to have a diagnosis of an intellectual disability, of autism, for younger kids under age 8, or through age 8, under age 9, a developmental disability with a high probability that that will ultimately, the diagnosis will ultimately be an intellectual disability or autism. And then we also support children with medically complex conditions. So in addition to the diagnosis, someone to qualify for services from ODP also has to have what's called an intermediate care facility level of care. And pretty simply, what that means is people have 3 different areas of adaptive skills where they have some pretty significant deficits. And again, that will be a determination through their different assessments that are used, and then the county is going to make that determination. And then the other piece is that in order to be eligible for the services, someone actually has to need the services. So someone enrolled for services has to need at least one of those services from that list that I shared. In addition to having a case manager supports coordination, they're going to have to need at least one of those other services that's listed. So that's the sort of, the criteria individual to that person, the diagnostic criteria to be eligible. You also have to financially be eligible for the program. And so that financial eligibility is done at the county assistance office. And anyone, what's important to know is that this is a Medicaid program, but our financial eligibility, we actually have a little higher, people can have a higher income if they are in the waivers, and that's ODP waivers or long-term living waivers, the CHC community health choices. We have the same criteria, which is 70% of the federal benefit rate, which is higher than typical Medicaid. And that's important to know, particularly for students who are interested in working. So I covered the, what the criteria for eligibility is, and ODP actually has 4 different waivers, home and community-based waiver agreements with the federal government. And the criteria for 3 is the same in terms of that diagnostic criteria. So for the person family directed, also called the PFDS, the community living, and the consolidated, the eligibility is you have that intellectual disability, autism, or at any age, or a developmental disability under the age of 9. A child with a medically complex condition is anyone under 21 who meets that criteria. And then we have the adult autism waiver, and that is what it sounds like. That is just for adults. In that waiver, we are not all ages. We are 21 and older. And then we do have some benefit limitations on 2 of those 4 waivers. So for the PFDS, we have a $47,000 annual cap. On the community living waiver, we have a $97,000 annual cap. The adult autism waiver and the consolidated waiver do not have annual caps on the amount of funding available for services. So unfortunately, one of the things that is true about services through the Office of Developmental Programs is that we have waiting lists for those home and community-based service waivers. For the IDA waivers, we have over 3,400 adults who are over age 21 that are waiting for services that are in what's considered an emergency category, meaning they need services between today and 6 months from now. The way we evaluate this is for anyone registered in a system, if they will have what's called a prioritization of urgency of needs that is done by the supports coordinator. Everyone gets a supports coordinator. If you're eligible for our services, you will have an assigned supports coordinator. One of the things that supports coordinator will do is talk with you about what you need and how urgently you need it. And one of the important things for students of transition age to know is that graduates are prioritized for enrollment in a person-family directed waiver. So every graduating student that is known to us will be offered, who isn't enrolled in a waiver. We have a number of young adults that are already, or we have some children as well, enrolled in those waivers, off the waiting list, enrolled in those waivers. Every graduating student will be offered a PFDS waiver. Okay, so that's really important. The adult autism waiver, we manage that a little bit differently. That's not an assessment of kind of who needs the service most. It is first come, first serve basis. And we are transitioning that to the same process, that PUNS process that we use for the IDA waivers, but we'll do that after we get through everyone who is already, who is on that first come, first serve list. So, that sounds like an awful lot of people waiting. It is an awful lot of people waiting for enrollment in the waivers. But the good news is Governor Shapiro announced last year that we would be, the Commonwealth would be starting a new strategy aimed at ending the waiting list, the emergency waiting list for adults. And we're doing that through a couple of ways. There was quite a bit of money that was put in last year's budget and this year's budget to support people coming off the waiting list. And then the governor also gave DHS the authority to manage our waiting list a little bit differently. And we're already starting to see more people being able to come in to services from that. So I'm really happy to say that just since February in 2024, we have been able to decrease the number of adults waiting on that emergency list by 24%. So we expect to keep making progress there. And again, since, you are individuals, so, close to or somewhere, in the transition age, I want to remind you, we do enroll, those are high school graduates are prioritized for enrollment in ODP waivers. So where you begin, you're going to, like I said, you're going to contact your Office of Mental Health, Intellectual Disabilities, your MHID office, and you're going to make an appointment to register for services and supports if you are not already registered. And there's a whole list of documents. They do need a lot of documentation to determine whether or not you or your child are eligible for services. We've got a list of the contact information. This is a live link. They will tell you what documentation you need to bring, and it's really important to gather all of that in advance so that you can kind of get everything done as quickly as possible and with as few visits as possible. Question we get all the time at ODP is, great, you get a lot of services. Why would I bother enrolling now since there's a waiting list? And really importantly, everyone that is registered, everyone found eligible for services for ODP does get a supports coordinator that can help with planning and coordination of services. The supports coordinator is that person's connection to the intellectual disability and autism services system. So they can assist with resources, even if you can't be enrolled in the waiver right now. That they will assist to make sure you have a PUNS and that your needs are properly identified. They can also connect you to other resources that are connected to our system. The supports coordinators are really critical in helping with transition planning, that transition to adulthood planning, collaborating with the Office of Vocational Rehab and other adult service system resources. And then again, obviously back with school while someone's still in school. And then I'll say it a third time because I can't emphasize it enough. We do prioritize graduates. We try to make sure that every student that is known to us graduates with services in place if they need those services. Thank you.